Here's an experiment. Here's an experiment. Here's an experiment to begin with.
In the time of looming crisis or impending crisis, who we need to turn to is those who've already been showing up and doing the work and facing this crisis beforehand. And so this season, I think, is a great opportunity for folks who are just joining us, or for those of you who have been learning with us through the years, to go a little bit deeper.
All right. Who are we talking to today, Eva?
So today we have Jason Soleil and Rox Anderson from Relationships Evolving Possibilities. You might remember REP because they were featured on season 1 of 1 Million Experiments. So we're coming back to REP, which is a Minnesota-based abolitionist network that supports others in moments of crisis or urgency with care and respect for the full dignity and autonomy of the people in crisis. The organization boasts 2 arms of work, radical ecosystem pods that serve as community-based networks of care, and an emergency response hotline, or warm line, as Jason calls it, that is known as Revolutionary Emergency Partners. REP's larger goal is to help community members transform the ways they relate to one another by diverting nonviolent situations away from the police. While working toward a world without police, REP aims to create a society that doesn't rely on policing while ensuring they don't become a substitute for law enforcement.
And now I think it's that time.
Are we hopping back in the lab?
Let's hop back in the lab.
Let's go.
We are here. We are back. We are honored to be on location here in Fresh Air Studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with the team from REP. We are so excited to have the homies, Rox and Jason, in the building with us. Rap. All right.
Human excitement, animal excitement. We got the full
we are here.
on that situation.
It's pure and it's sincere.
If plants could give you hype up music, they would have done it too.
That's right.
We are so happy to be with y'all. We were in y'all part of the world around this time last year, so it means a lot to reconnect. And we're going to kick into this thing how we always do. And it's with a 2-part question.
All right.
And this question is centered around time. So in this time, define that however you will, this day, this hour, this season, this lifetime, how is the world treating you? And how are you treating the world? Rox and Jason.
Well, I feel like, it feels pretty even in this moment. I think there's, some ups and downs and peaks and valleys as life be lifing. But right now in this moment feels pretty level in my world. And I think I'm giving, levelness back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Same. I can only echo that answer. Feel balanced right now. I feel poised. I feel ready for whatever we stepping into for the next 5-10 years. And I'm just giving good energy to the world, man. I know life is short, so I'm just trying to give as much good light as I can. And, hopefully I can rest well at the end of it.
I love hearing that we're poised for it. And I want to get to that future imagining and preparation. But there's a question that we ask in every one of me interview. And, we've had Signy from Rep on in the first season, learn from her, but I'm excited to hear from y'all's perspectives. In our clunky scientific method analogy, it starts with the hypothesis. For y'all, what was the hypothesis at the beginning of your work with Rep?
Just providing something the community can lean on in times of crisis. So our hypothesis was if we could, be a community vessel when it is crisis and not be able to, we can't take on violence. We couldn't take on serious crimes, but knowing you got somebody you could talk to figure out your next steps, that's what the hypothesis was. Just be a community resource where you safe. You don't got to worry about us using your information wrong. You don't got to worry about any of that. And you can tell us if you want us to, take your name out our system. So our hypothesis was if we serve that community need, that there would be more people, dialed in, having pods, being able to be at the event we were at, being able to be in community like we envisioned it. So our hypothesis was just really serving the community and building something different than what was already there.
Yeah, and I would say that hypothesis is steeped in ancestral knowledge that we take care of us. Yeah.
Just kind of continuing, it's almost a cousin to the question of the initial hypothesis. Jason, you referenced like being able to respond to crisis. And in this season of 1 Million Experiments, we're really trying to go deeper, not just in crisis response, but, as we like to do, unpack and unravel just the idea of crisis, putting it back together and like building ourselves up to face it. And so for y'all, and these could be different entry points, for y'all or for the work of Rep as a whole, what did you see as the actual initial crises that were being responded to, whether it was on the personal side or more structural?
Well, I think, there were two initial crises, right? Pandemic and, the lecherous and untimely murder of George Floyd, right? And so I think those were the two sparks of that crisis. And I think the crisis itself was distraction. And a disconnect from one another. We had been disconnected for a minute because of COVID.
Yeah, and I would say, atop of that was holding people accountable online. That was just insane. That's a crisis in and of itself, because it's we're responding to it was mainly Karen calls. People feel like something is suspicious. Somebody ain't looking right. They look like it was a lot of those calls coming to us, and we had to check them out. I remember the first call, we went over there, and it was because some people had been evicted in North Minneapolis. They got evicted, and it was boarded up, and they weren't supposed to go back in there. But when they called us, it's they got evicted that day. I understand why you would want to go back in there and get your PlayStation or whatever was the thing for you.
Birth certificate, whatever.
Whatever it was. But they had boarded it up and stuff. So the people were they not supposed to be in there. They got kicked out because they was using blah, blah, blah. So it was mainly a call of they just not supposed to be doing that. And I need to make sure they stop doing that. So we were getting a lot of those calls, or they walking back and forth down my block, because you got to think, we had 75,000 National Guards here during George Floyd. It was the time, at that moment, it was so many crises happening. We were responding to calls people needed their medication prescription filled because the Target was flooding and burned down. So it was you really didn't have one set call, but over time, 5 years later, I guess we would say mainly, it will stay the same. But it's become a warm line, and we figuring it out now. So we thinking about whether we'll handle calls during the week and all of that stuff now. So we still building on what it originally was.
I like that language, warm line.
Can we define it?
As opposed to a hotline?
Yeah.
What's a
break
warm
that
line?
down.
Well, we just felt we weren't getting any hot calls. So it's it felt more so warm calls. They just were they know they talking to somebody who they really gonna rock with anyway. Our carers are pretty dope. Our responders are amazing. So a lot of the calls were more so, man, I don't want to go do this thing, man. Can I talk to somebody? So it became therapeutic for a while. So the hotline coordinators were saying to us, should we call it a hotline? Seems deceiving if we're not getting hot calls. So it was that was something we had to wrestle with. So, we enjoying the journey, but sometimes those things can be, we want to be there and we want to answer the calls up to, violence. And at the same time, we understand that the community is still trying, some community members are still in shock at the new administration, all kind of things. So, we were playing around with that for a while. We not calling it that.
That's so interesting to think about building infrastructure that's supposed to respond, or the goal is for it to respond at a certain heightened level of crisis, but then actually what people, whether it's what they feel comfortable for or what they need more actively day to day, is someone to talk to, someone to help them move through internal or communal feeling.
Yes.
How do y'all make sense of that? How is that different? What has that taught you about people's needs? That was maybe different from what you expected of we're going to get a call because there's an eviction or domestic disturbance and we can figure out what to do, versus this person's trying to figure out how to get up in the morning.
Yeah, and I think that changes over time, right? Because of that, I think this mirage of steadiness, it's pretty much status quo. Things are pretty regulated in this moment, right? But underneath that is always the need, right? People always have a need for housing. They always have a need to connect with medicine. They always have a need to connect with one another. And we have barriers to that in all kinds of ways. And so I think those things in crisis are like blown up. They're like larger than life, but it doesn't erase those underlying things that we have as humans be humaning, you know?
We haven't gotten far to my first Miriam Copper reference.
It's just true.
But one of the things that she said that like really shifted what the assignment was for those of us that are building up this new infrastructure is oftentimes we take on like, oh, we need to be the replacement to the police. And so our imagination starts with what they do, what they're called for, and let's be the one-to-one or try to get up to being the Pepsi to that Coke.
Oh, trust. And, that's some of the ideas that we had in the very beginning. Of course. Right?
And like there is some reality of like those heightened responses that, they kind of have a monopoly on taking that capacity. But it was so profound of like, let's actually erase them from our premise.
For sure.
And let's actually start with what people need.
Absolutely.
Because, if we're being honest, like most people on a day-to-day are not even having to have the thought of like, oh, let me not call the cops. Like it's not even something that's coming up of like, this is a thing that I need the cops for.
Yeah.
But on people's day-to-day, there are voids.
For sure.
There are gaps.
For sure.
There are even discomforts that may not even rise to the level of conflict or crisis, but need human support of some type of way. So just hearing that like through the practice that like people weren't calling for the hot, but the day-to-day gets so warm.
For sure.
Is deep for me.
For sure. Sometimes it's just about getting through. So for us, we lean back on our core principles. So when we making decisions, just to answer your question too, when we making decisions, we always say, is this rooted in Black love and liberation? Is it rooted in ancestral knowledge? And what's the other principle?
Those are pretty strong.
Remember
radical consent. Radical consent. No. Radical consent.
Yeah.
So if
you said Black love
and liberation,
ancestral
knowledge,
and
radical consent.
So when we making critical decisions,
you got me.
We got to go back to that. Like, let's keep going back to that. So it's like once we came together trying to figure this out, having those principles to anchor us when we got tough decisions, say, man, is this honoring these three things? And we also lean on the fact that core, collectively, we got 100 years of organizing experience in our own capacities. So it's like when we leaning on that and we looking at it, we're not thinking about what cops are doing. Because my pedagogy to protecting the community started with me protecting my sister from people in the neighborhood.
Right.
So it was like, that was that. My mom dealing with my dad. So it wasn't no phone call to make. So for me,
you've been intervening for a while.
Yes, and I never thought like, man, this one got caught. No, never thought that. And like I said, as I got into my teens and then been to prison and stuff, I saw how we work things out differently. So, and when Rox goes to their community and they working, they DJing, then they stopping things and then they running the rest of it. That's a lot to manage in and of itself. A lot of things. So it goes back to being poised and saying, are we doing this right? Are we doing it the best we can? And sometimes we are, sometimes we getting it wrong. So, so we know, take the ego out of this stuff, man. We might fail. We might not do what we said at the beginning, but at the same time, we're going to make a hell of an effort.
So with those three principles on the table, let's talk about some moments where you've had to lean on them. What have been some of the tougher momentary decisions, or how do we handle this where you've been like, man, it's really good we have these three principles to fall back on?
I think that radical consent one came up right away on the very first call. Right? Because the folks calling have a concern, but they're calling on people who didn't consent for us to intervene in their life. So from that very first call, we were asking that question, what happens? And I think that takes kind of that heightened crisis response, because when you riding in hot on something, you are not gaining the consent of everybody in your sphere, right? And so that radical consent one popped up right away on our very first call.
How did y'all parse it? Where did you land on and kind of reconciling the contradiction of it?
Yeah. So in that moment, we had to just, we yelled up to them, say, oh, we got some stuff. You can call us if you need some further support, and let them know, hey, they called the people who called us, they had called the police before they called us. So we wanted to let them know, hey, them boys might be on yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it was more so like, hey, we here, we rep. I know you might not know much about us.
Like we're a hotline and a lookout.
Yeah, like, shoot, we ain't trying to be here when they come either, because, you know, it's like, that's why we doing this, you know what I'm saying? So it was more about just saying, hey, fam, we know y'all up there. They called. We could leave y'all information on the steps y'all want to. We waited. We listened. It was me, Rev, and can't remember, was it Will?
Maybe Will.
Yeah, so we stayed in the backyard for a little bit just to, and then we went back over to them and said, hey, we came, and they were just so shocked that we showed up.
Yeah.
They were just so shocked that we arrived, like, dang, you know, like, we didn't even expect y'all to show up. So in that one, it was more so like, we're not getting these folks in no trouble. We're not going to be here as no witnesses. Yeah. We don't talk to cops. We can cop watch if we need to, but we were playing it out in real time. That's never stopped because this is a new model. Yeah. We don't have any other thing to lean back on other than, should we slow this down before we make this decision? That's really like our, you know, chance to really look at it and say, well, this ain't got to be rushed. Let's just take a pause. So really people call us because they know we're going to slow things down enough for them.
Yeah. I love that. So it's about moving through time. It's obviously about presence, right? It's about just building the mechanism to show up.
For sure.
And more, is that a truth to me? I mean, in my political principles, more people bring more options. Like that. But also what you're saying in that is like more people without consent can escalate or bring more conflict. And so what I'm hearing in that, like, just, I can see you looking up at the window, AFAB, we're here. Like, you're coming with a commitment of understanding there won't be always a solution.
Yeah. And we wanted the callers to know that we did intervene. We here. We stayed over there. We ain't want to flag. We got these little lights in our bags, you know. And they ain't strong flashlights, but they like a flashlight. So we just beamed it up there a little bit. They probably didn't see it or nothing, but it was just like letting them know, hey, do what you got to do, but you got to go, fam. We not supporting you, etc. But you got a limited amount of time. We can understand what eviction feels like, so we not. But hey, limited. We went back over to them, and it was just more so letting them know what had transpired, and they felt good in that. They called again later. Like, they became a part of, like, I think they came to an info session. They became like the ones telling people that we credible and will show up. So it did blossom from there, but can't tell you where that's at now. But but that first call 5 years ago, we were just really happy to have our bags together, have like granola bars in there, cigarettes, etc. Because our main motto is, we just want to love you to your next step. So if we stay thinking like that, it ain't about a quick move. It's like, even when people off board and leave rep and it's not working out, we still thinking, dang, how can we love them to their next step?
100%.
Because we all going to keep taking a lot of steps. Even when we committed to doing this for 10 years, really volunteering, it was like, dang, I'm going to graduate 2 babies in that time. I had to really think, you know what I mean? So we realized a lot of times it's more getting people to like come up with a decision for themselves. We not the heroes, we not the saviors. Let's try to slow this down to where you can think through a solution that you're comfortable with.
Exactly.
So where did that language of loving them to the next step come from? How did that develop?
Pretty sure that was Signe, right?
I would say Signe or Raffo. One of those two brilliant minds. But I think it comes from that investment in community and relationships, right? You know, we all have people in our sphere that need a little extra love, that need somebody to listen to. We all need that. And so I think that default of loving folks to their next step, that could be their next literal breath. It could be moving from inside to outside, you know, like whatever it is that an individual might need in that next moment, we want to help them get to that. And I think we all need someone to love us to the next step.
For sure.
Yeah.
And when we first started putting the go bags together real quick, you know, somebody made the suggestion that we should put cigarettes in them.
Yeah, I was interested by that.
And I'm like...
That was me, I think.
I'm like, yo, we really want to do that? But it made sense over
Yeah.
time because I'm like, man, we're going to put cigarettes in there. And somebody said, some people need a smoke just to.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, dang, you know.
it's
So
like a thing people lean on for regulation,
Yeah.
like to actually bring their like blood pressure down.
I
you
learned
know?
I learned a new
And it's,
lesson.
I'm seeing that as a tool, right? Something's happening, you know, I'm just hypothetical. Something's going up, folks get into it, and you 10, 15 feet away, like, hey, I got to, you know, that could bring somebody away from conflict. That could create like physical distance
For sure.
in real time.
It's also a moment where people are used to having like a pause and a type of conversation that they don't like. It's kind of an odd thing,
Yeah,
but
there's
like
a lot of community.
but like we're
built around.
sharing a smoke
Yeah.
is like a space where people, in my understanding, get a little more like open to talking a level deeper
Yeah.
than if you're just like, hey, can I talk to you?
Yeah,
You know?
it's definitely
know
a
all
street outreachers tool.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of
Yeah.
to your point of ancestral knowledge. I mean, that is not in cigarette form, but
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
like we're passing something back and forth, we're smoking
For
together.
sure.
The aroma of it, the like ritual of it,
Mm.
it definitely falls in that bag.
Wow. So PSA kids, don't start smoking
Right, yeah,
cigarettes if you don't already.
Exactly.
But for those who may already live that lifestyle and there's something that's happening, maybe a cigarette could be a useful tool. That's a little
For sure.
ding, ding,
There
ding.
you go.
But
Absolutely.
I do think it's a good example of what I'm hearing from y'all's approach of like, let me not judge what someone will need in order to get to that next
Right.
step.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right.
It's also the same reason we have water and a granola bar.
Right.
Yeah.
Because not everybody does smoke, but most people can use a moment to slow down. Water also does that. We're also, chronically underhydrated
Yeah.
as human beings.
Yeah.
And so that, literally gives folks cells a moment to like blow up in their system, and it gives them a moment to slow down. If you can drink water, you have to have your breath under control.
Sure.
And that's kind of like our default number 2.
Yeah, it's
Breath.
like a somatic understanding
Yes.
of what happens to people's bodies in crisis also.
Exactly.
So I want to go back and I'm seeing images of these examples, and I want to lay out the flow chart a little bit because I hear the language of core, and there was a naming of a 10-year commitment. I'm hearing we, and then there's callers. I'm hearing that there's some sort of pipeline that even whether through community work or through utilizing the warm line, folks then come into orientations or trainings and onboard, offboarding happening. And so you've referenced decision making, all of that. We don't got to break down every nook and cranny, but I'm curious, what's the relationship between the folks that came together and initially took on this responsibility, folks that have joined in the space, folks that are answering the phone, folks that are showing up? How does that bounce off each other?
How are people communicating? How is it organized type of thing?
I think it's a little bit like an ocean, right? There's like constant movement, but there's a steadiness. And I think that steadiness comes through core. We're the constant. We're not going anywhere. We have made this commitment for 10 years, right? We're going to formally.
Yeah.
We're going to be in it in whatever form it looks like for 10 years. Right. And so that creates that kind of constant flow that the ocean has.
Wow.
And the turnover is the individuals, right? The little rocks and the sand and all the things that turn up when the ocean turns over. And that's community. And it's ever changing and it's always evolving. And the back and forth looks like weekly meetings. We meet every week for several hours as a unit.
Every Monday.
Is the
Monday.
core fixed or closed?
The core is fixed and closed.
Okay, so that was the group. Folks who enter the space can enter in other capacities, but that's not okay, all right.
Yeah.
Wow.
We got project managers. We have a studio coordinator. Yordi is like a core member. Yordi been there from the beginning. We have a hotline coordinator. And everything is up for change if it's not working. So we, make that clear. Like even if core is not useful or we become stale, which we never hope,
We hope that.
which we never hope
fresh air.
happens, right? Even if that happens, we've had those discussions. Like, is a core needed at this moment, or should? So we're all knowing this might change depending on if the community need changes. So we not locked into this because at a point we were like, okay, is CORE being useful? Because the hotline folks who are responding are closest to the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So should they be making the
Right,
calls on the decisions?
Just the traditional leadership participant divide.
Sure.
Yeah,
For sure. So that's always gonna be, a debate, a conversation. But every Monday we get a chance to anchor ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It don't matter where we are. Rox could be at a conference in Texas. I could be in Chicago. We could be all over, but we try to make that time. And if not, we look in the beehive and what is it called? Hive notes? Or
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can't keep up with all the tech.
But it's this balance of commitment and flexibility.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, a commitment to
Yeah.
both constant and variety.
Yes.
Which is so
For sure.
grounding.
Yeah.
Because in some of my organizing experiences, there is this like forever tension, especially for those who the responsibility falls on, of like, oh, this is all volunteer, and people kind of can sometimes almost leverage like I could leave at any moment.
For sure.
And so there's this like, there could be this eggshell or manicuring or even like ass kissing that you sometimes are like prone to do because you want to keep people in because you need your folks.
Well, ain't none of us gonna do that.
Yeah, but that longer commitment
For
that
sure.
like we've signed, even I can imagine at the point of friction, right? Like if it's almost closer to them, what we use family sometimes a little too loose, but that is closer to like a real
Like,
family
we are
dynamic.
not going anywhere.
Regardless of what happens, we're gonna have to figure this out, even if we're not talking in separate
Absolutely.
rooms, but we're
Yep.
staying in the house.
Most definitely.
Is a really powerful of like y'all were folks with experience, with connection, with relationship already, but then this larger formal commitment. How did that commitment even like come about? Did it come about? Is it like in writing? Is it like, was there like a ritual? Like how? If it's something private, you have to say.
No,
but
No, it
what
is. in
how
writing.
does that? How did y'all come to that idea of like we need to put 10 years into this?
I think just that wisdom, that knowledge that we have amongst ourselves, knowing that, it takes a year to shut something down and it takes a year to really start something, right? And
two at the door, just
right? So we know those 2 years down right there. And we know as organizers and activists that it takes a couple years to really kind of flush out an idea and see who's going to be there and who's going to be in the struggle with you. And so I think, it's like that wisdom, that ancestral knowledge. I don't know who put the number of 10. I think it was you. But I think that when that number came up, we were like, yes, that's a good commitment window to see if this dream, if this experiment, if this idea can manifest into something.
So how many years into it are we now?
5. Halfway.
So that's an interesting point at which to be reflecting. And it's been, that's a 5 years that also lines up with.
It's been 5 years, y'all.
That's really what I'm trying to say.
We survived the 5
It's been a wild ass 5 years in many ways, with an anticipation of things continuing to be in upheaval and be in whirlwind and in crisis in different ways. And so I want to go back to that poise that Jason, you talked about a little bit. In thinking about the role that y'all try to serve for your people, how are you understanding the crisis of this moment as similar or different from the crisis that this work started in?
I mean, I think it still is really similar. We just had a big incident here yesterday. It's already on every national news channel across the country. And I think, part of that is the response that people have learned over the last 5 years of how to interact. And I think, the other part of that is now checking on our people. We know folks who were there. We know folks who witnessed the brutality, the presence, the armed presence. And so, today I will spend time checking on folks that I have relationship that I know were there in that moment at Bloomington and Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And so for folks who will be listening to this in a
Couple months.
not so distant future,
Right.
just to like give the nuts and bolts of what occurred yesterday, I'll let y'all share like kind of what happened yesterday, because it's, I think, a good example of
let
that.
Rox.
that
In
need
as
for
much
care.
as is
Yeah, well, I mean, we still really don't know.
It just
Yeah.
happened.
You know, we know there was an armed militia looking with weapons and armored vehicles to serve a warrant in a predominantly Latino neighborhood at a Latino-run restaurant. And so community responded to that by first asking questions. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Why do you have so much force if you are just serving a warrant? You know, and as we look at the footage, we can see, you know, lots of 3-letter agencies were on the scene, including ICE. And so then that makes community wonder, what are you really actually doing? But just seeing folks in military gear does something to your system. And so that's the check back with those individuals. How are you doing today? What are you feeling? That must have been super scary.
I'm hearing, obviously, right, like the inevitable trauma of facing militarization in all of its forms. But also, as you know, I didn't know that this happened. I wasn't checking my phone in the morning. And so I just heard this from y'all. And part of the story I'm hearing is there was also maybe proportion is not the appropriate word, but a robust community response as well. And so one, just like observing that, I guess, how does it feel or land or resonate? But in my outside observer opinion, it feels like there's overlap between the capacity and the ethics that y'all have been a part of building and the fact that there was this organic response. Or is that
people were ready to show up?
Yeah. Does that feel right?
Yeah, and I think some of that is from our work for sure. And I think, you know, we've also seen examples already across the country. We just saw this in San Diego the week before, right? So we saw neighbors responding to places that they go on a daily basis. I literally just ate at that restaurant 2 weeks ago, you know, and so, and it's a place where we often take our friends who come in from out of town because they got the best burrilla in the area, right? And so, there's not really a return to normalcy after you see that, but just a checking in. How's your system? How's your soul? Did you drink some water today? You know,
again, there may not be a fix.
There may not be a
this
fix.
presence gets us to a next step.
For sure. And the main thing is we can respond quickly here. We've had so many reasons to respond quickly here, unfortunately, but it's always that, okay, what are you going to do when you're in crisis now? Like, we always respond to other people, but it's just like, what do I need if I'm really in a crisis? What does Rox need? And it's like, we know if something kicks off right now and it's a tornado outside or whatever, we're a pod now. We're going to all figure out how to get out this building, downstairs. We're going to make sure you get out the lot. We're going to figure out how to pod up real quick. We need people, when they go to stuff like that, to still figure out how to be in pods. That's why Paige is so important to our work, because we say, Paige will show you how to build a pod. How do you maintain that pod? Who are your peeps when it really go down? Because it's like, responding is great. For sure, we doing that. We answering calls. But then it's like, how do you get knowledgeable enough and equipped enough to where you don't even need a call?
Yeah, right. How do we build
You don't even need
capacity in the community
Sure.
instead of replicating and being an externalization
Getting
for
that-
us, right?
Yeah, how you build it internally, build it in the crib, let that community, because when y'all came in, we were talking about, man, we really got to train up 1,000 people.
Yeah. Talk about that.
If we can train 1,000, we got 100 and something trained now. I don't know how many of them actively respond, but we've trained people to understand how Rox does an amazing job at mental health, you know, first aid. Then it's like, we talk about our tech. We go through de-escalation, cop watch. Our 7-day training allows you to be more skillful.
Okay.
You might have heard Rox bring up Harry. Harry is one of our actors who, it's hard to de-escalate Harry because Harry got props that
Harry
you don't
going
even know
up.
are props. You know what I mean? Like, I saw Harry throw a bag of papers outside. Like, how they gonna de-escalate that? But we put you through it so you more equipped where it ain't just theory. Now you right in front of Harry and Harry walking down the street wreaking havoc. To know Harry was down there, I know Rox got to check on them, etc. It's like, you got to be able to stay and float in community in a way that they can see, 7-day training helped me. I know how to watch the cops. I know where I got to stand. I know how to de-escalate somebody now. I can feel it in my body, etc. then it's like the translation got to be, can I continue to share that with other people so that when we are somewhere, Rox might be the one de-escalating, or it's me, or it's you, or it's...
Right.
That's what we're trying to build out. So if we could train 1,000 people in that model of checking their body and actively de-escalating somebody and trying stuff and messing up, when it really goes down, we hope that you can lean back on this training that we developed.
And this is like a 7-day intensive that's like happening back to back, or these 7 days spread out? Like,
we've tried it in a variety of different
For
ways.
sure,
Yeah.
Tell me about the differences.
Mainly it's every other week we'll do a Saturday, then the next week oh my bad. One day we'll do a Saturday, and then the next week we'll do a Sunday, and we swap between Saturdays and Sundays till we finish.
So it's like through a season.
Yeah.
Which then is given like, now you're also in the rhythm of people's lives. Okay. So obviously, one, not trying to steal your sauce, but we are trying to share some.
That's all good. That's what we here for.
And,
would you mind passing the sauce?
Hey, still away.
And, we all got 7 days right here. We got the minutes that we got. But I'm curious if there's a nugget or a quick little CPRification of like one lesson people often come out with the training. Like, oh, I'm so glad. That was so easy that I didn't realize I could have been standing at this distance, or I could have, used this tone of voice. Are there little skills that we could share with folks that folks have like developed through these trainings that have turned out to be useful?
Well, I think one of them that we've talked about a couple times is breath. Right. One of the first things that we really try to, make clear to folks and let them feel in their body is that if you cannot control your breath, you are not in control of your body. And so therefore you need to take a beat before you're responding to anything outside of your body. Right. And I think that that's something that, most folks don't walk around kind of thinking about. And so we really want to kind of implore that in their system. Like if you're not controlling your breathing, you don't need to be controlling this scene.
Yeah, and Rox does an amazing job. They hold the entire mental health first aid day, and they'll show if a power line falls in a community, who's all impacted, where should people be standing. And I didn't know a lot of those things. I'm thinking about people and stuff. So it's like when Rox actually gets you to understand other crises, people always lead a training saying, I never thought about if that power line fell. Or I never thought about, what's another example you use when you're doing that? It's another picture we look at, and it's like chaos in the picture. It's like a lot of things happening, and Rox can say, okay, what else do you notice? What else? And we have to all like see the different ways to show up in those moments. So people lean on that. Also, when I do my portion of de-escalation, I go to some intense situations. I talk about a shooting at a party where if I didn't de-escalate, somebody would have got killed that night. And it was like I had to physically put my hands in front of the gun and don't kill this dude. It's a hard one, and people out here still know that story. People still impacted by that story from 97. That was the story from 1997. Right, way back.
I like the full honorific of 1900.
Right.
That's
Yes.
Right,
from back in the previous century.
For sure.
And again, to that example of this knowledge, although it like maybe has this like ultimate use in what we call quote unquote organizing spaces, a lot of this is learned through community experiences that are built through the generations. I want to home back.
One last thing, real quick.
Please.
Also, what we do in de-escalation that's different. We not only talk about the ways we've de-escalated, we always give examples of when people de-escalated us. So that's something we want people to think about. Like, how do you want to be de-escalated? How you like to be de-escalated? Like. Yeah.
That's a great question that I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have an answer for themselves.
But we need you to come up with an answer because it's like, I don't want to be trying stuff.
Because otherwise you're guessing and you don't know if that actually might up the ante a little bit.
Even if you're guessing and your guess turns out to not be like the perfect answer, somewhere in there you realize, well, I've already consented to this mode.
Sure.
So even if I'm not feeling it, I did name that this is, so now I can reassess. But if it's just coming in like, it was not prepared for, that can then be another point of contention. Wow. Yeah, that's very important. It's like, this self-assessment that is needed.
Most definitely.
Rox, I want to go back to mental health response because I feel like there is just more focus, more energy, more desire for mental health response. So I'm curious for you, for well-intended folks, are there things that people either don't get or misconceive or generalize about what we put all into that language of mental health response that you work through in these trainings?
I mean, I think the thing about mental health response is really about compassion and empathy. You know, for us as people responding to that, to slow down, to take a beat, to try to put ourselves in the other person's shoe. You know, it's scary when you're not in control of what's happening to you. And so, you know, that's not a thing that we often think about. You know, people need their space. So, you know, we're often taught to like run in and give somebody a hug and just put your hands on them to like calm them down. And, you know, if people are escalated, that's often the last thing they want, right? So it's really just about giving folks a moment to think, to give space to ask those questions. It's why we carry some of those tools in our bag, because if you're asking someone, hey, you need a cigarette, you need water, you need a granola bar, hopefully it's not too stale, you know.
I was about to say, if you're gonna have the granola bar, you better have the water with it.
yes, right? Because that gives folks a moment to think about something other than what is immediately causing them to escalate.
So you talk about having this set of tools, and a lot of this is like through training, but it's also through y'all's personal experience, and just in some ways, how wonderful y'all are. Like this is skills that are built, but also now in
Delightful people.
spending
also.
time with you again, there's just a certain amount of like groundedness that being next to y'all brings. I'm wondering about moments where none of the tools in your toolbox worked. And what did you do?
I don't think we had a moment. I think we had a moment where
I don't
none
think
of
we
our
have
tools-
like not a rep moment like that, right?
Yeah, probably in our individual lives where we felt exhausted that something wasn't working well, or you know, something with some of these badass kids. But I can't think of not as a rep as a whole. I mean, we had a moment where we were questioning everything about rep. We probably were in year 3.5, and we were just questioning everything.
What prompted that?
Some folks felt like we weren't honoring a mask policy, you know, and it really wasn't that. It was like it was holidays, people were away. It was just a bad time for an incident to happen within rep. And it was just like, again, I mentioned when we first got on here, handling accountability online, it's just sitting on a screen and people can unmute whenever they want and all of that. It's not good grounds for getting through some of the most intense things. So I'll say if I had to lean on any moment, I would say that moment, because we the kind of people, we like you just being straight up and say, hey, that was messed up. But when you're on Zoom, you got to wait for 7 other people to go and stuff, man. It's like, man, this ain't accountability. I don't know what and I had to keep saying that, like, if we can't get in a room, and now we keep saying it like, yo, we got to sit down with each other for some of these decisions, because it was normal to organize meeting people online during COVID. And I never had that, where it's like, when we did start meeting people in person, people was like, man, you taller than that. Like, bro, I don't know what I was portraying on the little screen, but it was a lot of, we had to reintroduce ourselves to each other.
Your literal full dimension.
Do you feel like it got easier once you could be in a room with people? You know, we're talking about these 5 years. That's about half the time, maybe 3.5 years in. Yeah. Did it get easier to build those relationships?
Yeah, but it feel like people feel like it's an inconvenience now. We've made so much things virtual that people be like, damn, you ain't thinking about us. And with our disability justice work, we do have to think about that too. You know what I mean? So it makes us say, dang, are we acting from ableism? Because it feel like able-bodied people, and it was the thing with the mask where we was like, dang, is this ableism? Where we feel like, so we're not too far into this where we can't be checked and start all the way over. Because it's like at the end of 10 years, if we say, man, we answered 500, because we've answered over 200 calls now. So it's like, if we say we've answered 500 calls and they looked like 90% of the people stayed within rep, kept coming back, info sessions, podding up, etc., we'll feel good about it. But even if it showed we didn't do much at all and didn't have much of an impact, we're not going to be, we're not going to be mad at that either. It's not going to be that. But at the same time, this ain't no win-lose thing for us. We hope we can hand something over to other people and they can just keep creating their own rep, whatever variation or whatever style that looks like. Because it's like that with de-escalation. Your style might be totally different from mine. Yours might be too. I'll walk up and say, is there anything I can help with here? I'm coming in
starting
totally
with inquiry and questioning.
Yeah, is there any? That's how. So we want you to find your own de-escalation, your own tool. So in that, as you get older, your de-escalation style changes. When I'm 70, I don't think I'm gonna be de-escalating the same. I might be at a further distance because I ain't trying to take no. You know what I mean? So I just think,
Like, can you come over here so I can de-escalate?
like,
real quick?
right.
I'm not walking all the way over there.
But then you got sir status.
Right.
People slow down around the sirs.
Yeah,
the
I hope
sirs and
so.
the ma'ams.
I hope so.
Y'all got to slow down because I'm
Right.
moving slow.
Right.
I want to, we're talking about this 5-year span, and, we kick off the conversation of there was a real on-the-ground traumatic crisis of the militarized response to uprising coming after the brutal death of George Floyd. And I feel like that's informed our conversation a little bit. And I'm curious more on the political side, because at the same time where there was 75,000, was that what the number you said?
National Guard.
75,000, armed people here. There was also this little flicker of a moment of the city council voting to disband the police department. There were these signals that for a moment there was this large national canvassing campaign that happened here, following that moment. And now we're 5 years later. We are in a Trumpian reality. We are in, again, Miriam says the front lash, but people understand it as a backlash. And so we are in political crisis. I'm sure there's been cooperation, there's been cooptation, there's been attack of the political thrust that this is an expression of, right? And so how is that playing into the work? How is that playing into people's well-being? How, the relationship to the state, even though this is work happening outside of the state, how is that shifting or informing in this season with some of that distance of 5 years?
Man, politics ain't gonna look. I mean,
we keep it funky.
Yeah, I mean, politicians, they gonna change and work. That's just an element that we try to block out as much as we can, because they got to make promises. They got to play however they got to play in that space, and we just don't want it to impact our work. You know what I mean? So it's like, an individual, we support different candidates, we support different people and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we want people to understand what we trying to do. You could do without legislation at all. You know what I mean? What we doing is mainly, do you understand your rights, fam? Do you know what you can do? Do you know Good Samaritan laws? So we try to account for what we can do, because emotionally, man, I'd be mad as hell at them. You know what I mean? Because it was dang, we were going to shrink the police and have something different with social workers and public health people all in there. And then, and that's how the stuff goes politically, you know what I mean? Because it's 5 years ago, it was a strong call for abolition everywhere. But then it's 5 years later, the people in there now can pretty much quell a lot of that with crazy pardons and all this other wild stuff. So it's if we get lost in what politicians, do or don't do, we'll be totally out of our element, because we wouldn't be as poised handling this work, because we'd be mad as hell.
Yeah, it's it's destabilizing.
It's maddening.
Yeah.
I mean, I think politicians are people, and people will be people, and at the end of the day, everybody's just really trying to survive, right? And so I'm gonna be at City Hall tomorrow. Tomorrow the city's doing a proclamation about Pride Month, and that's a community that I work a lot in. So I have to show up there. I have to shake hands. I have to eat breakfast with these folks, and then
at least it's breakfast.
Yeah, at least
it is breakfast. There should be some donuts.
Granola bars, no water.
Right? And then that is just what it is. It's policy. And like Jason said, what we really trying to do is make a people connection. And we're not fooled by the like not knowing that the personal is political. Like we all know that. And in our personal situation, we are always going to be advocating for our communities, our neighbors, our family members. And that's, I think, what keeps us able to come to tables of policy. It's also what allows us to come back into the neighborhood, because our neighbors and our friends know that just because we showing up at City Hall doesn't mean that we're going to be showing up as somebody different than who we are in the neighborhood.
Sure.
Fry knows I'm going to be me if I'm at home or if I'm sitting in his office, right?
Yeah. And so as we move towards wrapping, you know, we've been pulling apart the different types of responses to different types of crisis. You mentioned breath. You mentioned the like clear consent of this is how I know I want to be de-escalated. I'm wondering what else has proven helpful for y'all as practitioners and participants in staying centered, staying clear-eyed, staying focused, and being more able to continue to be present through crisis. That maybe is something that is also useful for other people as they're trying to figure out how to respond in this moment.
I say, you know, one of the things that we do is we stay in deep communication with one another as core. And that is that every day we are sending sometimes hundreds of messages to each other on a signal thread. So we're in this constant flow of communication. And then as we're able coming together physically, I think you mentioned just being in the room creates a certain thing. And I think when you get all 5 of us in the room, that's 3 times more energy than what Jason and I are producing. And I think that helps keep what we're trying to do working in this kind of pattern of knowledge building. It's like quilting, right? We're building upon the knowledge of one another and supporting one another in our endeavors. Like this shirt that I have on today, you know, I told my homie, like, I want a shirt that I can wear reflective of trans community that signals to trans folks that their lives are valuable too. And this is what he made me. Right? And so we're constantly showing up for one another. You know, one of our colleagues just had a book release. And I think 4 out of 5 of us were there, or 3 out of 5 of us were there, right? You know, Signy's gonna jump in the pool and swim with the with the sirens, right? And do their synchronized swimming thing, and we're gonna show up. Right?
Synchronized swimming friends. I want to go to
Signy got a silver medal.
I mean, yeah, a gold medal too, right?
Right.
That
like,
shit was synchronized.
Yes, right.
They lined it up.
Right. You know, I'm frequently reading from Jason's book or Rafo's book or Miriam's book on my radio show, right? So we're constantly trying to put that knowledge and information out into community and resource ourselves, you know, keep filling up with knowledge about abolition and about how to be in community, in connection with one another.
I have one last question. So we're saying we're talking this 10-year commitment. We're halfway. Looking at these next 5 years, what skills, what roles, what abilities do y'all hope you as individuals, but as a collective have to respond to crises that you don't yet feel like you have now?
You know, the dream is to be able to deal with active violence. You know, if we can be a group that can actually solve for violence while it's happening, where it's like shootings and stuff like that, that would be, you know, amazing. But we don't know if we'll get to that. So we've been saying, can we train another 900 people? Community is safer as a result. Even with the whole conversation on cigarettes and stuff, people talking through that, it just gives them more ideas and more things to work with. That's what it feels like our job is to do. Yeah, you can call us at certain times, but you can also text us now. So that was a part that built on to the hotline, because we're like, dang, y'all want to make it where we textable too? So we've had different iterations, but by the time we get to the finish line, we looking at the volume of calls, we looking at the number of people trained, and we looking at what has happened as a result, but we don't really have a destination. We just showing you can get a group of people together and you can figure it out and co-struggle over a long period of time. I mean, hopefully another group will say we commit to 20 years and we'll do it this way. And we'll like to see what happens there. And hopefully we could probably be around in some advisory roles. But this 10 years, the next 5, because we've been through a lot. I mean, 5 years, we've been through a lot, You're
at that point where turning back is just as far as going ahead.
Absolutely.
Shit, might as well.
Exactly. And because of the way that we've been in community, we really know that last year is about like sunsetting what is right now, right? So we know we got files and pictures and we got the remnants of our experiment that need to get boxed up, that need to be archived, that need to be protected, right? So we know really we got 4 years of getting that training out into community. We have 4 years of responding back in a way when community calls us. We have 4 years to gather the stories of the impact that Rep has made. And then we have a year to wrap that all in a nice little bow so that it's available for folks in the future if they want to use that knowledge and resource that information.
And we're hoping, that this piece is could be a part of that archive and helping making things
definitely.
more.
Yeah.
The biggest part, man. I rock with y'all.
I do want to, from that great question Daniel asked, and we'll wrap, is...
this is our third last question for the record.
That's all good.
So the premise I'm coming from is that you learn so much more about what is needed, about what you don't know, about where you're short from doing, right? So 5 years ago, there was this idea that many people have all over the world, all over the country of, yes, we want to be in better community. Yes, we want to respond to the warm, but many people want to get to being able to respond to the hot. And so y'all have been building for 5 years with the recognition of not yet having that capacity. Is it clearer now what some of the obstacles, what some of the gaps, what that jump looks like than you would have been able to say 5 years ago? Like, oh, I now know to get there, we need to build up these things that we don't yet have.
Yeah. And I think mainly it's like a legal piece in that. Somebody bloodied and it already man. So I think
certain liabilities that
And of course we working like not on a shoestring budget, but you know what I mean? Like probably a couple shoestrings, but we know that we gonna try and get to that point where people just know if you're in a critical incident, like we can't stress enough that being able to calm yourself down is like a critical. If you at 10 and you hyped up over an incident, you gotta find a way to still be okay and move through it. If we get people to that place, then we can start talking about, okay, now it's because I could see Harry doing an active shooter scenario and we really working through that and figuring that out. I can see that. But when it's time to actually do it, when that phone really rings and it's like they say 6 people been shot somewhere and we got to try and get there to stop it, I just think, man, that's probably going to just be philosophical rather than actual taking the steps to do it. But we hope our work leaves room for people to say, man, we thank them for this 10 years because now we're going to be able to do it way better in this way. So we might not be able to be the group that solves for active violence, but we hoping our work inspires the next group to be able to take it there.
Anything you want to add?
I mean, I think, the other part of that is the other side. Can we get folks the resources that they need so violence isn't the result, right? We're talking about responding to violence, but can we create systems to reduce the level of spikes in violence in individuals and communities?
How can folks find y'all and your work in the ways you want to be found?
I mean, we have an online presence. We're on the gram, Instas. We have Facebook. We now have yard signs and QR codes. And so if you just, put relationships, evolving possibilities in your search bar, you'll find us.
If folks are local to here and they're trying to get on the warm line, what's the number?
We're hotline still. But, I don't know what is it. 5-2. You got us with that one.
We'll put it in the description. Yeah. So as we close out, just want to share our appreciation one more time for we've talked a lot about what it means to have presence, and in the moments that we've gotten to spend with the two of y'all and with the work of Rep overall over these last 4 years of doing this project, this has been a through line that we've learned so much from y'all's experience, your presence, and the ways that you show up for each other. And so thank you for the openness. Thank you for the consistency. Thank you for the commitment. And thank you for being down to share it with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Man, much love to y'all. We appreciate y'all so much, and much love to the people.
Peace.
Peace.